So, you wanna hear a story? A story about the sea? Well, I sure got a few of those, but the sea is a big place, crowded with nightmares. Very sure the girls over there would give you a much better time. Oh? Well, why don't you crack open that bottle of grog over there and give that old man a shot of it? Way easier to speak without a dry throat, you know. Pour yourself a glass too. You sure will need it. One man comes to my mind immediately, a former street urchin. His gang kicked him and a friend of his out as they got too old. He never knew his father, was lost at the sea. But he often dreamed of him, and he wanted to bring his bones back to London and give him a proper burial. A mysterious man, that he was. He always wore a mask, and I'm not sure if Vale was his true name or not. The trail of his father's bones at that point was rather cold, but there was a new lead a week ago. Slivy, the urchin who speaks to the wind, an old friend of him, as I presume, mentioned that he was as good as a swimmer as his father was. So, he and I will admit myself were rather curious to meet him. Slivy was a ragged fella. His face was disfigured by a wine-stained birthmark, and he has to struggle with a bad stammer. Marks he got from a kiss of lightning, as he got too bold in a storm once, the other urchins say. Yes, I've been waiting for you. I just want me a little mother salt, something to call me tongue. Bring it, and I tell you who is your father. Mother salt, then. Well, it was very uncommon to find here in London, but in Wythern, a town way up north, where salt of all kinds were produced, there we sure would find it, and so our first goal was clear. We made our way back to the docks, passed by the university, and was approached by a rather interesting passenger. A tomb colonist who wants to be brought to Vanderbright asked if we could take him with us. We agreed, of course, it was no way anyway. You don't know the tomb colonists, boy? Ah, you're young, I see. Well, it's hardly difficult to die here in fallen London, you know. And if a man gets, or a woman, of course, gets too ragged, too wretched, too unpleasing for the eyes of man, they wrap themselves into bandages and get themselves a nice comfortable coffin to sleep in during the transfer. So, while the crew were storing her coffin under deck, the captain decided to visit the Administratory Surveillance Office, a place where sea captains could hand in reports on different colonies and get a little bit of money. He went in and asked them if they need anything in particular, and so they did. They needed strategic information from the Iron and Misery Fungal Station. It was supposed to be located not too far from home waters. I'm rather sure you know that the islands have a tendency to move around a bit from time to time. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes a few months. So, to draw an accurate map is challenging, to say the least. So every captain draws his own map. Afterwards, the captain asked if he could speak to a higher authority, perhaps. But they told him if he proved himself, they would see to it. So on our way back, he asked me to take the rest of the money he got and get some extra supplies for the ship. He trusted me with my opinion on that. So I went straight to Miss Plenty's shipside provisioneers. The best place where you can buy fuel, supplies, and other handy things for a long time out in the sea. While I was buying the supplies for a ship and making sure they were brought on board, the captain took his time, go back to the little room he has over this very tavern, and took his time to read in the local newspaper a bit. Well, don't take this as laziness. A few recent informations could be valuable out in the sea. You never know what could help you. After he was done and came back to us on board, we were ready to set course. After a last check-up on our supplies and the ship's stats, we were ready to leave, so he gave orders to start the engine, and for the first time, the ship left the safety of the Wolf Shack docks. I will admit I was rather sure the engines would blow up and we have to swim back to London even before we lost sight of the docks. But, to my surprise, it holds rather well. Now, boy, let me tell you a bit about the ship. Every captain has a trained seabed, where he could send out to find the many shattered and scattered islands and colonies. The captain could give orders to power up the engines to their maximum capacity. It's risky to do so because the engines could explode and, well, damage the ship and the crew alike. But if you have to get away from a dangerous enemy or a giant monster, it could be your last option. And sure, you burn a lot of fuel in the process. But better out of fuel than out of life, would I say. Also, he could turn off the lights to make it harder for enemies to spot us. Of course, it's not a nice thing to do. Don't many sailors like to be in the dark out at the sea? It is wearying, strange and unsettling. Well, let's not talk about that right now. I get goosebumps only thinking about it. Luckily, the way up to Vanderbilt is harmless. The worst things we could encounter were swarms of seabirds and maybe a few smaller pirate ships who are able to slip to the authorities' net. But we didn't encounter anything like that on our way. But something else happened. It's something that not happens often, because it was actually something good. We were eating, and suddenly we heard a crack as a tooth fall on the ship's planks, followed by curses of our captain. The crew chuckled a bit, until we saw what he had bitten on. It was nothing more, nothing less than a diamond in his food. Tiny and rather flawed, but a diamond nonetheless. Diamonds are sacred to stone. One must give it back to the sea. It will bring us luck, Captain, one of the sailors said. Yeah, it would maybe. So the captain has to decide, keep the diamond and a little bit of money, or give it back to the sea. He decided that the money was more useful than luck for that moment. But he would keep in mind what his man had said, and we went on. Oh, because I told you I am afraid of the dark. Well, have you ever been in the dark? No, you weren't. Because I see it in your eyes. If you ask a sailor if he ever been in the dark, you'll see the fear of knowledge in his eyes. Because the darkness out in the sea is different. It's not like you go to sleep and turn off the light. No. The darkness in the sea is a living, breathing creature, only held at bay by the lights of the ship and the crew. But if there are no light, the darkness closes in, its claws scratching at your mind, its teeth chewing on your thoughts, its mouth whispering conspiracies, dark secrets, and darker promises. So don't laugh at me because I am afraid of the dark, because I know why I am, and every sailor knows why he is afraid of the darkness. Anyway, we finally reached Vanderbright and made ready to bring our passenger to land. You can imagine we were rather surprised as she ripped off her bandages and revealed that she looks remarkably healthy for a tomb colonist. Soon she admitted that she was not as dead as she might look, and that she sure would need our helps to get ashore, because the constables indeed were looking for her, and she asked if that was a problem. The crew was a bit weary because helping her would sure have consequences, but she was young and the captain was sure falling for her beauty, so he admitted to bring her ashore. It went rather well. Of course, we didn't manage to stay completely unnoticed, but even the captain learned a few things about hiding, and she paid us rather well for our services. So, since we already were here, we decided to stay for a bit in Vanderbilt instead of going straight on to Wythern. Vanderbilt is a rather interesting place to be and holds a lot of opportunities. First of all, we gathered some gossip. Even despite they are mostly corpses who walk around, they still hold very interesting information, and we soon enough had enough information for a nice report for the administration. Here in Vanderbilt, they favor candlelight over gaslight, so the shadows were swaggering like thick cobwebs. The tomb colonists stand so still, you could easily mistake them for a sculpture or a statuette. Until, of course, one of them laughs or coughs. 1 out of 3 buildings seems to be completely abandoned, but you never know. It was a wearying, unsettling place. We made our way to a little chapel, who stands alone on a little hill. We poked our heads through the door. The walls were a deep red, just this side of scarlet. A ruby-tinted window at the back glows with steady light. An electric lamp behind the glass, maybe? Rare and expensive, but that was neither candle nor gaslight, that was for sure. No one was there, and yet we felt that someone has been moments ago. The captain decided that after he kept the diamond, it maybe displeased the god of the sea. He would drop a coin at the offering box and stay here for a little prayer. It could sure not hurt to have some help from above. Prayers soothe the soul, they say, but our souls were not soothed at all. We waited, heads bent, while the light of the chapel beats on us, shadowless and unmoved. Nothing changes. The red of the place getting in our vision. The faces of the crew flushed as if fevered. We heard our hearts beating, echoing raggedly. No one was sitting in the pew behind us, but that didn't stop us from looking. The scent would stand with us for a long time, but it sure would make for a good story when we return to London. Tell me, is it a good story? I tell you I was glad as we left the chapel. On our way back to the ship, a man approached us, telling us that the first curator would give the captain an audience. So he sent me back and took the opportunity to talk to this man, since he was rather famous, even in London, as you might know. It is responsible for the preservation of the tomb colonists, and has been here much longer than London, like all the old tomb colonists in fact. But even tomb colonists dissolve in the end, and its time is close. The captain told me later what happened. The steward asked him to not bring any lights in, since the curator was terribly afraid of moths. And then he opened the door and sent the captain in near darkness. Only a pair of illuminous lamplighter bees buzzed in a Avon tube. There was no other sources of light. A bandaged shape, not larger than a child, lies crumped on a couch. It lifted its head with obvious effort. It takes several seconds to distinguish its voice from the soft buzz of the bees. "See, Captain, Silkskin. Not much left of me. I will go into the Grand Sanatorium. Bring me colors. 7 colors. Well." That was what the curator said to him. It sounded like an odd request, of course, but since this being was on the brink of his extinguishing, the captain would sure listen. "Spoken, Rico, Pelican, Steward, as list, find them here and there, across the wide black sea." Well, it would have been rude and rather impolite to deny his request. It was his last wish after all. After that, it collapsed back on the couch. Even the effort of talking seems to have taken a lot out of him. It shrinked away from the finger of light that moves across the floor as the captain leaves the room. Outside, the steward was already waiting for him. The captain asked for the book of colors, and was in the volume of it. "The curator is as old as dust," the steward informed him, "and he would be grateful if he could fulfill his last request." "We sure would do our best," he promised. After that, there was nothing much to do, and nothing left to do. He went to the stores to check if something was of interest to buy or sell. One even offered a few echoes for recent news from the newspaper from London. So what, let me smug. But with that he came back to the ship, and we set the engines on again to move out and across north to finally reach Whitehorn. Since our journey was rather uneventful at this point, I decided to take the opportunity to talk to our young gunner officer, the girl and friend of our captain, who he brought from his street urchin times. Cute girl, I will admit, and I tried to hit on her once. She hit me right back. I got a bruise on my eye for a month almost. But I then asked her what brought her to sea, since it was sure no place for a young lady to be. Well, I almost got an expected answer. She wanted freedom. the freedom to do and say what she wants, not get pushed around or kicked downstairs because she got a bit too tall, like it was in her time as street urchin. But she also had a request that she would get a land at the Cane Shadows, an old shipyard. Now you will get to this. She would promise to never forget us or her faithful friend, if we decide to bring her there. Our little chat was rather rudely interrupted by one of the sailors as he yelled that we counted a life berg. Nobody really knows what these creatures are. Some think it's an angler crab that's overgrown by salt and ice and could not come up any more of the sea. Some think it's really living ice. Only thing we know for sure is that these creatures are dangerous. They are fast, and whatever they are, they like to sink ships. We barely can't escape. The captain do what he could. He first turn off the lights and power up the engines a bit more. We escaped, luckily, without any damage at the ship, even if it came close enough that I could spit on it, what I did. And to our luck, Wythern was in arm's reach. We just had to reach the docks, then we would be safe, for now. In the thick fog near the town, we could see another lifeberg swimming, but it didn't seem to notice us. But for sure the other one gave chase and was still behind us. But we were too close to the dock and it didn't pose any threat anymore. So with a huge sigh of relief, we reached the dock of Fenderbright and powered down the machines. As soon as we had solid ground under our feet and our hearts stopped pounding, we started to make our ways to the local shops, where to our surprise we would found that as we asked for a Muttersword, he asked for a good story, and as we asked what it would cost, he answered a good story. It turned out echoes are rough shit in Wythern. They want stories, and they had a very few things they would buy for echoes. After we got the captain out of the store and prevented him from rip out the shopkeeper's throat, not that I could blame him, we decided to look around a bit at this odd place called Wythern. Behind the great arch over the bay, the pale waves stretched white and silent, as if the face of the moon. From here you might almost imagine there were snow. North of the city the salt pools fizzled with unlike colors. We decided to explore the city. Wythern is a quite chilly town of grey stone and closed courtyards. The people are neither exactly unfriendly nor exactly hospitable. They have the irritating habit of answering a question with a question, and here and there odd sights are tucked away from us as we passed by. As we wandered across the shore, the Black Sea whispered on the beach, but another soft sound was audible over the waves. It was a woman in an iridescent green gown. She waves vaguely from a rock near the shore. Sorrowful sighs wave across the waters towards us. An idiot castaway? A mermaid? Of course not. Mermaids are perpetuous myths. But in the end, the poor woman didn't answer to our calls, and she was obviously in need of assistance, so the alcohol getting to me, it seems. So, after a short moment of dispute, we decide to approach the woman. And would you know it, as we came closer to her, a gigantic sea snake emerged from the waters, teeth sharp and big enough for a mouth to bite a ship in half or swallow a pig whole. The woman's conscience slides into the water, and then we saw what she really was. She was the tip of this monster's tail. It had lured us to this beach so we could become his damn lunch. We had only moments to decide what to do now. We could either fight this monstrosity, but most likely it would just eat some of our crew, get a little scratch, and then slide away from us. Or we flee. And would you know it, our captain was smart enough to order us to fall back. Well, all he said was, "Run for your life, you fools." And, well, so we did. Its teeth were sharp and its neck were long, but our feet were fast and we had the fear in our backs. So we made it safely inland. A sea serpent that disguised itself as a woman. Believe it or not, but at least it's a good tale to tale, isn't it? As we were back in Python, what we then needed was something to calm our nerves. And say about the people in the land what you want. They may be mysterious, shy, and quite aggravating, but their beer was adequate, to say the least, and the captain ordered around for every one of us. So we calm our nerves and drink and eat a bit, and even have a good laugh at one of the men fall into the water. He fall out for a few days because he contracted a little cold after that, but in the end it was worth it. The whole crew was a bit relieved after the serpent incident, and so we was almost ready to leave. Last thing to do was to gather some intelligence. Rather aggravating, since most questions we asked were answered with another question. But in the end we had gathered enough information for a suitable report, and since there was nothing left to do, we finally left Whitehorn behind us and made our way back to London. Well, I think that's enough for today. The grog is almost empty. And you, my friend, look a bit pale around the nose. Come back another time when you calm again, and I will continue my story. Is that a deal? Yeah, and don't forget to bring the grog. See you.